The pro-life argument that abortion is immoral is actually pretty simple, at least on the surface. It usually goes like this. Premise 1, it's always immoral to directly kill an innocent human being. Premise 2, the unborn from the moment of conception is an innocent human being. Premise 3, abortion is the direct killing of the unborn, and so therefore, conclusion, abortion is always immoral. Now, it's often assumed that everyone agrees with that first premise, that it's always wrong to directly kill an innocent human being. And because of that, pro-lifers usually don't spend much time defending it. And when they do, it's often just an appeal to intuition. But here's the problem, and this is what we're going to see in today's episode. Not everyone accepts that premise. In fact, many people don't. And once that happens, intuition alone just isn't going to cut it. What we need is a real defense, a robust one. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So glad that you're here. If you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any new videos. Also, I'd like to invite you to consider helping keep this podcast going by supporting us on Patreon at drkarlo.com with doctor spelled out. And if you're already a patron, thank you so much. We're super grateful for your financial support. All right, so there's no shortage of challenges to this pro-life argument from pro-abortion advocates. Some go after premise 2, arguing that the unborn, from the moment of conception, is not actually a human being. Many others, however, realize they can't get around the scientific evidence, and so they take a different approach. They'll concede the unborn is a human being, even from conception, but then argue that it's not a human person until some later stage of development. And since the unborn isn't a human person before that line is crossed, they say the unborn at that stage doesn't yet have a right to life or a claim to legal protection. Others concede that the unborn is both a human being and a human person, but they still try to undermine premise 2 of the argument by arguing the baby in the womb isn't innocent. And if the unborn isn't innocent, so the argument goes, well then the mother would be morally permitted or justified to kill the child. And then there are those who don't want to challenge premises 1 or 2. Instead, they go after premise 3, the claim that abortion involves the direct killing of the unborn child. The argument here is that some abortions merely terminate the pregnancy without directly killing the baby. And if that's true, they say, well then such acts wouldn't violate the principle that forbids killing innocent human beings. And then finally, and this is the most important move for our purposes today, many pro-abortion advocates, and I'd say most of them, challenge the very first premise that it's always immoral to directly kill an innocent human being. Judith Jarvis Thomson is a classic example. In her 1971 article, A Defense of Abortion, published in the journal Philosophy and Public Affairs, she explicitly rejects the idea that, as she puts it, directly killing an innocent person is always and absolutely impermissible. She says that claim is quote-unquote false. And she argues that killing the embryo in the womb, an embryo she admits is plausibly a human person from conception, can be permissible if it's necessary to save the mother's life. Now, ideas like this don't stay locked away in philosophy journals. You hear this same reasoning today from many so-called pro-life politicians, people who say life begins at conception, but who still support legal abortion in cases of rape, incest, and threats to the mother's health or life. In other words, sometimes, at least in their view, it's okay to kill an innocent human person. Others go even further. Take Sophie Lewis, for example. The title of her 2022 article in The Nation says it all. Abortion involves killing, and that's okay. That's the title, my friends. She approvingly quotes Maggie Nelson from The Argonauts, who says this, quote, "Feminists may never make a bumper sticker that says it's a choice and a child. But of course that's what it is, and we know it. We're not idiots," she says. "We understand the stakes. Sometimes we choose death." And she applies this to cases where mothers, living in what she calls quote-unquote unspeakable conditions, kill their children as an alleged act of mercy. Now, what all this shows is that we can no longer rely on intuition alone to establish the immorality of deliberately killing an innocent human person. Like other long-held intuitions, think of claims about sexual morality, the intuition that it's always wrong to kill the innocent is steadily drifting away under the pressure of modern thought. And given this is where we're at, we need something more than intuition. We need something more stable. We need an argument grounded and rooted in fundamental moral principles, principles that belong to all of us simply in virtue of being human. And so the question is there such an argument? If we assume, for the sake of discussion, that the unborn child is a human person, as thinkers like Thompson and Lewis do, can we logically show that killing him is wrong? And the answer is yes. But fair warning, it takes a little work, so hang with me. Now, to make this argument, we need to lay down a few assumptions first. The first assumption is that there really is such a thing as objective morality. And all that means is that some human actions are morally good and some are morally bad, regardless of what you, I, society, or those in authority happen to think. Second assumption, we're assuming that human nature, specifically the order of goods that belong to us as rational animals, is the objective standard for judging whether human behavior is morally upright or wrong. And this shouldn't be too controversial. Think about the Me Too movement that gained momentum in 2017. To say that human beings shouldn't be unjustly coerced is already to assume that we ought to behave in a way that's consistent with human nature. We're self-determining beings, and when nature demands that we respect that order, like when we're innocent and not an unjust aggressor, to violate that order is wrong. Okay, now with those assumptions on the table, let's get to the argument. We'll start with what I'll call the natural principle. Whatever is necessary for us to have that which is natural to us is also natural. I'm going to repeat that. Whatever is necessary for us to have that which is natural to us is also natural. St. Thomas Aquinas puts it this way in his Summa Contra Gentiles, Book 3, Chapter 129. He writes this: "Whenever a certain thing is natural to any being, that without which this certain thing cannot be possessed must also be natural. For nature is not defective in regard to necessary things." Now, I realize that's a mouthful, so let's think through it. Let's start with a simple analogy. Soldiering. I ask you, would it make sense to deploy a soldier without providing him the required training and weapons? Of course not. Why? Well, because it's the nature of soldiering to fight, and fighting requires weapons. So weapons, like fighting, are natural to doing what a soldier does. Consider now the simple fact that you and I are human beings. And as human beings, there's stuff that belongs to us by nature. We have a body with all its powers and functions. We have a soul, a rational soul, and its powers and activities. And this stuff is natural to us. It's what makes us a rational animal. And for the purposes of our argument here, insofar as we're rational animals, we're social beings. We're not islands unto ourselves. Now, as the natural principle states, whatever is necessary for us to have that which is natural to us is also natural. Since living as social animals, social rational animals, is natural to us, it follows that whatever is necessary for us to live as a social rational animal, you might say the prerequisites for living as a social rational animal, is also going to be natural to us. So this naturally raises the question, well, what is necessary for us to live as a social rational animal, to live among other rational animals? Well, folks, at a minimum, refraining from killing each other. That's to say, ordered harmony. To quote Aquinas from his Summa Contra Gentiles, Book 3, Chapter 128. This ordered harmony is required for us to live out nature's design for our perfection as social rational animals. You can't follow nature's command to pursue your perfection as a social rational animal if I kill you, nor can I if you kill me. The natural order, therefore, entails that each of us be equal in behavior that's naturally consistent with the exercise of living, with the exercise of life. This natural equality, Aquinas calls the equality of relations. That's to say, this equality in behavior. He calls it the equality of relations. And you can check out his Summa Theologiae for this in the second part of the second part, question 79, article 1. So this equality of relations, at least with regard to behavior that's naturally consistent with the exercise of life itself, is natural to us too. It's nature's plan. It's nature's order. It's nature's blueprint. It's a major part of nature's recipe for human happiness and perfection. And here's where the concept of the innocent comes into play. Being equal in behavior that's naturally consistent with the exercise of living is just another way of saying the natural order entails that social rational animals be innocent in their relations with one another, primarily in behavior. The behavior itself must be consistent with what human nature demands for the equality of relations among human beings. And I emphasize the behavior itself because sometimes you can have a person who's innocent in intention, but not in their behavior. Like in the case of a crazy person who's lost his mind and is not culpable for his aggressive behavior towards me or towards you. So innocence, at least in behavior, is essential to the equality of relations. Now, let's turn to our other major principle, what we'll call the justice principle. Whatever is natural to man is due to him. Repeat, whatever is natural to man is due to him. Let me give you an example. Suppose a famine strikes our country, and I happen to be well stocked with food, and a starving man comes to my door. Since food is natural to him as a human being, food is due to him. And because there's no way for him to acquire food on his own in this scenario, justice requires that I give him some food. Now, how much should I give him? Well, that's a difficult question, and it goes beyond what we need to answer here. But we can say this much with certainty. To give him no food at all, given my abundance, would be an injustice. In that moment, it falls to me, whether I like it or not, to give him what is due. Now, with that principle in mind, let's recall what we established earlier. We showed that an equality of relations among human beings, what Aquinas also calls ordered harmony or peace, is natural to us as social rational animals, precisely because that equality of relations is necessary for us to live out our lives as social rational animals. So at a minimum, this equality of relations requires equality in behavior that's naturally consistent with living together as human beings. Very simply, I don't kill you and you don't kill me. Now, we also showed that this kind of equality in behavior is another way of describing innocent behavior. Now, here's where the justice principle comes into play. Since equality of relations, innocent behavior, is natural to human beings, it follows that such equality is due to us in justice. This is exactly why Aquinas writes in his Summa Theologiae, second part of the second part, question 79, article 1, that, quote, equality in our relations with others, that is, ordered harmony or peace, is, he says, the equality of justice. So let's pause and summarize the reasoning so far. Premise 1. What is natural to human beings is due to them in justice. That's the justice principle. Premise 2. Equality of relations, meaning innocent human behavior, refraining from killing one another, is natural to human beings. And so therefore the conclusion, equality of relations, innocent behavior, refraining from killing one another, is due to human beings and justice. Now, consider what happens when someone deliberately kills an innocent human being, a person whose behavior is naturally consistent with the exercise of life, of my life. To do so is to violate the equality of relations that is due to that person. In such a scenario, the killer is no longer equal with the other in behavior. And since this equality is naturally due to every innocent human being, since it's what human nature itself requires, it follows that to deliberately kill an innocent human being is a violation of nature's order of justice. In other words, it's unjust. And it's unjust in two ways. First, it's an injustice to the innocent victim. And second, it's a voluntary failure on the part of the killer to uphold justice, a voluntary failure to give what is naturally due to another human being. Since to behave in a way that violates or thwarts nature's order for human perfection is immoral, it follows that to deliberately kill an innocent human being is immoral. This is why, my friends, the moral imperative, thou shalt not kill the innocent, is not arbitrary. It's justified. It's grounded, rooted in the natural order itself. We can now summarize our entire argument like this. Premise 1, any act that violates what is due to a human being, any act that violates the order of justice, is an unjust and thereby immoral act. Premise 2, direct abortion is an act that violates what is due to a human being, namely the equality of relations. And so therefore our conclusion, direct abortion is an unjust act and thereby immoral. Now remember, for the sake of argument, we've been assuming that an unborn child from the moment of conception is an innocent human being, a rational animal whom nature directs toward life and self-perfection as a social, rational animal. And given that assumption, the equality of relations that is necessary for him to exist as a social, rational animal, an equality of relationship that necessarily includes refraining from deliberately killing him, is naturally due to him. And that's what we mean by the unborn child's right to life. And so to deliberately kill the unborn, no matter the stage of development, is to violate natural justice. It's a gravely immoral act, not merely just because it offends our sensibilities or intuitions, and not just because, but for a clear, specific, and logically grounded reason. It's an offense against justice itself, a deprivation of the goods to which every human person is naturally entitled. As unfortunate as it is that such an argument is even necessary, since our intuitive horror at killing the innocent really should be enough, we live in an age where the most basic moral truths must be carefully thought through and defended. And my hope, friends, is that all people of goodwill will have eyes to see and ears to hear the injustice of the deliberate killing of the unborn. If you're interested in getting my argument here in written form so that you can sit with it and read over it and assimilate it, check out my article, What If It's Okay to Kill Innocent People, over at Catholic.com. Well, my friends, that's it for today. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, comment below, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And for more resources, check out my website at karlobroussard.com. Be sure to check out catholic.com. If you want me to come and speak at your event, visit catholicanswerspeakers.com. And lastly, I'd love for you to consider supporting me over on Patreon. I can't continue doing this podcast without your financial support. You can find me over at drkarlo.com with doctor spelled out. My friends, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.